So Gary O'Neill has been a frequent speaker to Launchpad since for a very, very long time. He is an avowed expert on LinkedIn. He has been generous enough to do a LinkedIn video on the homepage of our website. He is a recruiter, an excellent recruiter, the owner of a number of different recruiting companies. But today, Shannon came up with a different kind of a take. She said, if you lost your job, if you were a job seeker, how would you organize your job search? So this is from the other side of the desk, Gary O'Neill.
Cool. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. So here's how I'd land my job. Here's how I'd land my next job. So you guys ready? All right, let's go. So step number one is I have this overarching guiding principle. The overarching guiding principle is I have no idea. Can y'all repeat after me? I have no idea. You know what I don't have any idea about? I don't have any idea which companies are really about to hire people. I have no idea why that job post was up and then it was taken down and then it's back up for 30 days. I have no idea why I didn't hear back after my interview. I have no idea whether they looked at my resume. I have no idea about anything. So the only thing that I can tell you is that as much as I've done recruiting, I've been first or second person, probably 20,000 hires at this point in time. If anybody in this room was likely to have an idea about what's going on in any particular hiring situation, it'd probably be me. And I'm here to tell you, I have no idea, right, on any of these kinds of things. So if you operate with this guiding principle, I have no idea, I think it helps you out a whole lot. So let's just start with that. That's my overall guiding principle. I have no idea. So here's where I start. First thing I got to do is I got to decide. And what I have to decide is I have to decide what my next job is. And let me be crystal clear on how important this is that, and some of you have this problem, some of you don't. Some of you are crystal clear on where you're going, some of you aren't. Let me tell you how important this is. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Let's say that I've got a bunch of people that I'm talking to. I'm building an inside sales team. We're building one together. These 5 people over here are crystal clear that they're all about sales. They're all about closing deals. They're motivated in that regard. And these people are open to sales, or they would also be okay with marketing. They'd be other kinds of things. Which 5 people are we probably hiring, all other things considered equal? We're hiring this set of people, right? Let me also give you another example of how important it is to be crystal clear about what it is that you're doing and what my next job would be, right? I'm going to decide what my next job is. I had a gentleman who had been in operations roles, pretty senior level, for quite a number of years. He had moved into an HR role about 5 years ago, pretty senior level HR role. He got into it for interesting reasons because they needed somebody during this merger and acquisition, what have you. Ended up loving it. So I got him presented over, very senior level vice president role. We're talking about $225,000 a year. I knew that they were going to really care whether or not he really wanted to be in operations or really wanted to be in HR. I talked to the gentleman, coached him as much as I could to say it's really important that you be clear that your passion is around HR and that's really what you want to do. In the final interview with the CEO of the company, he got baited and said, hey, well, we got some operations roles. You know, if we had one of those come along, would you be open to that too? He said, yeah, I'd be open to either one. Done. Over. Psh, gone. It was over that fast, right? So that's how important it is to decide. So my first step is I'm going to decide. Here's how I would decide. Here's what what am I really motivated to do? Quite frankly, my next job might have nothing to do with running recruiting teams because I'm kind of tired of it, right? I'm kind of tired of it. I do it every single day, make a good living doing it, but I might be motivated to do something else. So what am I motivated to go do? What do I really want to go have happen? Next thing is, what do I have proof for? Do I have proof? There are things I might be motivated to go do, but I have no proof. I have no reason why somebody would believe that I'm likely to be able to do that. If I was motivated to go be a brain surgeon, I have zero proof that I can go do that. Somebody's going to hand me a scalpel on day number 1 and expect me to cut somebody's head open, right? And I can't possibly do that. So what do I got proof on? And then the other thing that I would do, and maybe this is the real trick for some of you, is I'm going to go do some market analysis to find out how real and how likely it is that the thing that I'm motivated to go do, that I have proof that I'm likely to be able to do it, is actually real enough for me. All right? Any idea, anybody got any suggestions on how you would go about doing market analysis as to whether or not this is a realistic path for you to run down before I tell you how I would go about it? Glassdoor, what would you do with Glassdoor?
I would examine, see what market penetration is for the particular interest you're pursuing, what the income level is, what the opportunities are for growth.
All right. Okay, that's certainly one resource, no question about it. Yep. Mark.
I always take people and say, go search on job titles.
All right.
See how many job titles there are, how many people have that job title in your area.
Yeah.
Or the other one is to search on certifications.
Yeah.
And see whether people actually have that certification.
Right, and where are you searching these job titles at?
On LinkedIn.
Primarily on LinkedIn, right? We're going and searching for people who,
In the job title.
right. We're searching for people who hold that job title. The only other thing I'd add to that is you can do a couple of other things. One is you can see, here's what I'm here to tell you about titles. They're meaningless, right? In my world, they're meaningless. Only to the degree that lots of people who call account manager really do widely different things. So to Mark's point, I would look for what are the other titles that people like that have, right? And I can actually broaden my set out. I can also find out the people who are currently in these kinds of roles, which are the ones that I'm motivated to do, that I have proof I'm going to be successful at. What did they do previously, right? What is the path that often got there? Because, as an example, I think I would be a fabulous product manager. So, by the way, if any of you have any product manager openings, you need to talk to me. I think that I would be a fabulous product manager. I have little proof that I could actually be one. And so if I was moving into product management, and I looked at the path that people got there, a lot of them got through being a business analyst, a BA, writing user stories and the rest. I could land a job as a BA. I probably couldn't land one as a product manager. There was a hand back there. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Excuse me, I was going to say probably using LinkedIn or any of my other networks, actually talk to people, and as you said, find out the path that they got there and what the job entails,
Yep.
what their skills that they're using, but actually like informational interviews, talk with people that are involved in that.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, I'm going to do some market analysis. I'm going to see, as an example, if there are 6 people in this town who do the thing that I'm motivated to do, that I probably have proof. I probably ought to put that one aside. I might run after it, but it's probably not my primary target, right? I'm probably finding something where there's a reasonable set of things that are out there, a reasonable set of companies who have people who solve those kinds of problems. I'll probably also go do a little bit of compensation analysis on those things, take all of that stuff with a huge grain of salt. Here's what I know. If you look at salary.com or PayScale or Indeed or any of these things where these curves are, right? You look at the midpoint, here's what I do. I kind of go below the midpoint. A lot of the people in there actually aren't really even doing that job. So I'd take somewhere in the neighborhood, at least for me, I'd move into the 70 to 90th percentile, and that's probably where I'm going to plan on playing. That's where I do. You have to decide for yourself. But you can figure out a little bit about what that job pays. So as an example, if I went out to the world and I found out that I want to be a product manager, I find out that as a product manager, I'll probably start as a BA. And if I find out that average comp, and this is not true, but if I had looked at the midpoint and the high point for business analyst, and it was 30 to 60K or whatever, I go, man, I can't live on that. So I would veer off of that particular path, right? This all good? So, at the end of the day, what it all comes down to is not only do I gotta decide, I have to absolutely commit. That is what I'm going to do. I am a product manager. I am a business analyst. I am whatever it is. And literally, I meant to bring a white coat. I was going to put on a coat. I am a brain surgeon. Because here's the truth. If I go to when I go to market, and this is about me, right? When I go to market, I'm going to be crystal clear on who I am and what it is that I do. And the reason why is because if I know that I'm going to be a product manager and I go to market and say, I'm a product manager and a business analyst with significant experience in these kinds of things, right? I mean, I must go to market as a business analyst. Otherwise, no one will hire me as one, right? If I go to market saying, well, I could do business analyst stuff, but I could also be an IT director and I could also do recruiting, things like that, nobody hires me for anything. So I'm absolutely committed to it. Does that make sense? You guys are all absolutely crystal clear and committed to exactly what direction you're going. And if you could do sales or operations, you're picking one, right? Go to market as one. All right, cool. Next thing I'm going to do is be crystal clear on my profile. It starts with this. What's my compelling future story? And what my compelling future story is, you can call it your elevator pitch, you can call it your talent brand, you can call it whatever it is. But one place where it manifests itself is in the summary of my resume. It's what I use for my cover letter. It's also going to be the summary of my LinkedIn profile. So if somebody says, hey, Gary, tell me a little bit about yourself, I'm going to respond with my compelling future story. So despite the fact that I've been running recruiting teams for a really long time, and before that I managed very large IT infrastructures, and before that I led software engineering teams doing kinds of stuff, if I was going to go be a product manager, my compelling future story would say I am a product manager and a business analyst with significant experience in software systems, IT infrastructures, as well as whatever target market I'm going after. You know, examples of my ability to solve this kind of problem include this one, and this one. So I'm going to market with a compelling story about being the thing that I've decided to be. What I'm not doing is going to market with a compelling story that says, well, I've been running recruiting teams, but I'm kind of bored with that, and I've decided I'm going to do something different. You know, I think I'll be a product manager now. Would you hire me as one? You know, right? Would you hire me as one? Here's a story I hear from people all the time, which is, the summary of the story is, well, if they would just give me a chance. But you know what? It's not a business's job to give you a chance, right? You know what you're asking. You know what you're asking for when you're asking somebody to give you a chance? Just give me a chance. I'll be great at it. What you're saying is, please open your wallet and please hand me cash on the hope that I'm going to be great at what it is that I'm doing. Yeah, I used to be a nurse, but I'm going to be an IT professional now. So please open your wallet, hand me money, and hopefully that it works out, right? So all I know is it's about I'm going to have a crystal clear, compelling story with zero doubt. And when I tell you I'm a product manager, you'll probably believe it, right? You'll probably believe it, because if you don't right off the bat believe and see me as a product manager, you're never going to hire me as one. So I start out with, I am a product manager. Yes?
Would you consider the doubt if somebody puts on their LinkedIn summary, looking to transition into, is that the same thing as, I'm not a project manager?
It is. It's pretty much the same thing. I'm hiring a product manager when you are one, and after you've transitioned, and after you have a little bit of experience, and somebody else has opened their wallet to bet on you, now I'll talk to you. So my point is I'm not actually trying to say that no one would consider that. I'm saying that the majority of the market won't. And so if you consider the fact that some subset of the market who might be hiring product managers might give you a chance, right? And there's a set that won't. If you look at the set of all people who would give you a chance when you're in transition, would they also give you a chance if you're crystal clear that you already are one? Yeah, they will, right? The people who won't give you a chance if you're in transition won't. So, you know, use the approach that everybody's going to be in favor of.
Does that mean we can't use transferable skills like we hear from so many
Oh, not at all. Not at all. In fact, I'll talk about in a second how I'm going to take my career history and align it to give you proof that I can be a wildly successful product manager. I know I could be. I'd be a really good product manager.
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of product managers, and we're all branded in two ways. We're branded based on our industry experience and our business acumen. So when I say repurpose your career, you should only change one. So when you are trying to go from being something to a product manager, what I would be doing is trying to do it within my industry.
No question.
And sell that industry knowledge.
Right. So as an example, I'd be a great product manager for Indeed. I'd be a great product manager for a number of products that actually have to do with recruiting and hiring. I'd be a great product manager for a company there's a number of them. So basically, if I took everything that I know about recruiting and hiring, and there's Bullseye, and then there's a couple of rings out from Bullseye, which are marketing, communication platforms, and the rest, then basically I could skate in that particular direction based upon the knowledge, skill, and experience that I have, which is the proof that we were talking about. Yes, ma'am.
So would it be the same, what he's saying and what she's saying, to put on your resume or your summary, for instance, for me, marketing and digital advertising, with interest in aviation? It's not that I want to change what I do, but I want to get closer to planes. So is that the same? I mean,
I'm not sure that I understand, other than what you're saying is you actively want to get closer to the aviation field, right? Sure. I mean, there's no reason why you wouldn't do that, because the people who you're going to reach out to that we're talking to in the next step, they're probably pretty close to the aviation industry, right? Yeah. But here's the other truth, right? So you can make it stronger, and we could go way into this, but the real truth from a recruiter's perspective and somebody who's hiring people and the rest, your interest in things kind of doesn't matter to me a whole lot. It kind of doesn't matter to me a little, but there are a lot of people interested in all kinds of stuff. Your interest is cool. Your ability to do the work is a whole lot more interesting to me. You know, you can be interested in all kinds of stuff. So I'm not discounting it. I'm saying it doesn't count for much. It doesn't count for much. You had a question?
I just want to say, you just explained to me why I'm not being successful.
Sure.
Because I am doing what you're saying not to do. So thank you for that.
Well, by the way, on that note, I have no idea, right? I have no idea. There isn't a right way. There isn't a wrong way. Everything that you can imagine happens, which is somebody goes, oh, this person's a product marketing or marketing and stuff like that, and they're interested in aviation. Wow, that makes me wildly interested in talking to them. That happens sometimes, right? So there's no right or wrong. My whole deal is, what can I do to help you shift the odds in your favor and stack the deck? So it's kind of like that idea, if you had 80% of all people wouldn't consider you as a product manager, you know, if you said you were in transition, 20% would. That same 20% would consider you if you weren't in transition. So do the thing that's going to enable you to be attractive to more people. Yes?
One thing I might ask is reading your resume would be what part of your what interest in aviation do you have? And how does it relate to whatever it is that you're actually trying to apply for?
Yeah.
And maybe being a little more focused there might be.
Yes. You're right, because as an example, if you talk about interest in aviation, that's one thing, but if your interest is in helping people reach their destinations, if they're, you know, I'm interested in drills, well, what is it about drills? I'm really interested in helping people make holes, right, is maybe what it really is. So, all right, so I'm going to clearly put together a really compelling future story, and if you just saw my compelling story, you'd have no idea that what I've been doing for the last 17 years is running recruiting teams. From looking at that compelling story, it wouldn't say anything about recruiting at all, right? Unless I was clearly going to go try to be a product manager for a recruiting software company, right? Here's the other thing I'm going to do. I'm going to take my background and I'm going to align it with the direction that I'm going, because it's my job to align it. And what I mean by align it is this idea of, hey, that makes sense, right? Hey, that makes sense. I want someone to be able to see what happens for a lot of people is your background is a little bit disjoint. In fact, a lot of the most interesting people that I know and some of the most valuable people I know have really diverse backgrounds. They're all over the place, right? But the truth is, that's a harder row to hoe with respect to getting your next job. And the reason why is because sometimes I have candidates whose background is all over the place. But when I tell the story to a hiring manager, the hiring manager goes, oh, well, that makes sense, right? But what happened was, I have a candidate, I can see it, because that's what I do for a living. The hiring manager doesn't. They would otherwise look at their resume and say, why in the world would I talk to this person? And so it's me, as the recruiter, who often takes that disjoint story, converts the story, tells it in a different way, and the hiring manager says, oh, that makes sense. So since most of you don't have me in the middle between where you are and what it is, the onus is on you to take a disjoint background and align it in such a way that somebody goes, that makes sense, which is, Gary, to your point, which is this is where the transferable quote-unquote skills come into play, right? And I think it looks like this. That green line you can't see very well. So the really, really low-risk approach for an organization that's hiring, or not an organization, by the way, organizations don't hire anyone, right? People hire people. Organizations don't hire people. In fact, I'll go all the way to telling you that organizations don't exist. They're make-believe, right? The only reason why Dell exists is because we believe it to exist, right? There's really no such thing. Money's not real either. It only has value because we believe it has value. So if that helps you lose interest or lose value in your money, if you would just leave yours here for me, a belief in the value of money. All right, see this green line right here? So this is a low-risk approach. It's called see your past, and it's a really straight line. This is the point where I want to hire you. And the reason why I'm hiring you, honestly, isn't because of this. I'm hiring you because of that. I'm hiring you because of what I need you to do and where we're going in the future. And the better your past aligns with what we're doing in the future, the lower risk you are for me, right? The lower risk you are. As a hiring manager, I'm also kind of lazy. I'm also kind of busy. And the idea that I have to mentor you and train you, I don't know where that disappeared to, right? It hardly exists anymore, right? It really doesn't exist in the world a whole lot. So as a lazy hiring manager who's really busy doing all kinds of things and really doesn't want to invest my time and energy in you, what I really want to do is have you take a personality test and do a bunch of other tests that when you don't work out, I can blame it on the other test. The easy thing for me to do is if you look like that, I can hire you right here and have a pretty good idea that that's going to happen, right? So if your background looks like that, it's all kind of different colors, it's disjoint, you were in marketing and you were in sales and you did the product management stuff and you're me, and you know, you were in hospitality and then you're a software engineer and then you're in IT stuff and then you're doing training stuff and then you're in recruiting things. My background makes no sense to anyone, right? What I've got to do is I've got to take all of these disjoint, discolored pieces, and it's up to me to align those so that somebody goes, oh, that makes sense, right? So I think that these transferable skills that you're talking about, I think this is what it comes down to, is I think of it more in terms of transferable characteristics. And I also think of it in terms of telling the truth and nothing but the truth, but hardly the whole truth. So here's a great example. Gary Spennistek, who's sitting here, and we worked down the NASA Johnson Space Center area years ago, right?
Rocket science.
Yeah, rocket science. And Gary was a great rocket scientist, and he did a lot of training. We taught ADA and all kinds of stuff, right? I have no idea why they let us do that, right? I was about 23 years old, standing in front of a classroom full of people, teaching them all kinds of stuff. But, so I wrote software, I did software development training and the rest, but what I also did is I interviewed a couple of people. I hired a couple of key people. I had a team of about 3 people that I was responsible, maybe 5, that I was responsible for writing some software that actually was synchronous and asynchronous message handling for what was then going to be Space Station Control Center. And most of my time was spent in and around writing or talking to people about writing software. So what I would put on my resume about what I did way back then is I would say nothing about writing software. In fact, I probably wouldn't even put software engineer as my title. I would probably put something along the lines of team lead, and I would talk about interviewing people. I would talk about hiring teams. I would talk about finding connections between people's motivations and ambitions and helping them align that with success in their career. And the truth is that's about 1% of what I did, but it's the only thing about what I did that's actually really relevant to what I do today. And so with respect to somebody aligning my resume with those kinds of things, right? So at Paranet, we're a wildly successful company. I joined the company when there was about 30 people or so, 35 people. We ended up 1,800 people in 7 years. My job was as director of professional services to define the services that we use to deliver our services to our company, to our clients. I was also responsible for our own internal IT organization. I probably wouldn't say anything about that. What I would probably say is I architected the hiring machine that actually helped us hire 1,800 people in 7 years, that we got to the point where we were hiring 125 people per month. That we helped that we helped create a team, a recruiting team of 35 professionals who were the most effective recruiting team ever. And I talk about that, which was about 5% of what I did in that particular job. I probably also wouldn't put my title as Director of IT and Director of Professional Services. I would probably change it a little bit to be something that's a little bit more in line with where it was that I was trying to go, assuming that where I was trying to go is with respect to another recruiting role. My point is that I'm going to do what it takes to take these disjoint pieces, and it's not about telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, because the truth is most of what you did in the background way back then is kind of boring and irrelevant. It really doesn't matter to anybody. All anybody wants, here's what they want. Somebody wants to see that. Here's the other thing. Are y'all familiar with a movie from way back when called The Point? It was a Harry Nilsson. How many of you are old enough to remember that movie called The Point? You remember that movie? Great movie. Why didn't it become a cult classic? So there's a point when there's a log rolling down the hill. Do you remember a log rolls down the hill, hits the rock man? Do you remember the rock man at all? And the rock man says, you see what you want to see, and you hear what you want to hear. So hiring managers oftentimes are a little bit desperate. They've waited too long. Their hair's on fire. They really want to hire somebody. If you're in talking to them, they're hopeful that you're the person who they want to hire by that point in time. They want to see this, right? And if I allow them, I can take that and make it look a lot like that straight line that they want. And here's the truth. The onus is on you to do that. The onus is on me to do that. The onus is that if you leave it up to the other person to try to figure out how your background makes sense with respect to where you're going, it may not work out so well for you. But since this is about my job search, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take everything that I did in the past, just like a couple of those examples I gave you, and I'm going to line it up just so it makes perfect sense to you, because my ability moving forward, let me ask you this. If you were hiring me right here to be whatever you're hiring me for, head of recruiting or product manager, how much of my success in that little curve back there has anything to do with what I did working in the NASA environment back in the late 80s and early 90s? How much of my ability to do this has anything to do with that? Kind of none, right? Right? How much of my stuff that I did from 93 to 97 at Paranet? More than you might think, actually. But all I'm going to do is I'm going to make it nice and straight so somebody feels good about talking to me and hiring. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell a story. And the story is going to be the truth and nothing but the truth. It's just not the whole truth because most of it isn't relevant. Back to the aligning your skills and transferable skills. It isn't like take everything that you did and figure out how to align it. It's called take the minimal set of things you have that actually align and put the light on that because everything else doesn't matter. By the way, we as humans, we don't remember, particularly looking at resumes and things like that, we remember the average of what we see. And what I mean by that is, if I'm looking through your resume, I'm going, oh, this is good, and oh, this is good, and that's good, and you start telling me some things that make me go, right? Those things didn't serve you. You'd be better off not having in them. So if I was moving forward with respect to anything in recruiting and product management wise, there's a lot of what I did in the background I really don't want to put in there because it makes somebody go, And as soon as you make somebody go, that's not good, right? Your whole ability to get hired I think of it in terms of these micro moments. And in my job search, what I'm going to do is everything is these micro decisions that happen along the way. And every micro decision, somebody's either going, oh, about me, or they're going, about me. So what I want to do is I want to maximize the ohs and minimize the right? By the way, it starts this simple. I go, every day when I receive a resume from somebody, and their resume name is, P. Cullis, sales resume 2. And I'm like, right? Right? What the heck is that? What's your other resume? And why is this version 2? What do the other ones look like? Why didn't you just put Gary O'Neill resume, right? It starts with your file name, right? That's a micro decision that I'm making about you right now, right? See all kind of weird file names. People don't even put their name on their file name. And the point is, they're named it whatever they named it for their convenience, not for mine. And so I'm just kind of going, right now I can say, what a bad decision maker that person is, right? And all of a sudden I just made a judgment that you're a bad decision maker because of your file name. And you think it's not true? It runs through my head every day. You have a question?
Are you also going to turn those, are you going to show us that you turn those O's into quantitative measures as well, as I see?
Yeah, we would do that if we had time. So I'm probably going to run out of time, so it's going to happen. Yes, sir.
So I'm sitting here thinking about this particular picture.
Yeah.
What I do is I rescue big projects.
Okay.
What I can't tell someone who's hiring me,
Right.
those before and after pictures. If I'm someone who showed them the before picture, they're not going to hire me. They don't want to be showing anybody their before. So does that suggest anything to you around this? I mean, I'm
All it suggests to me is that it's hard to do, right? It's hard to take this and make, so the point isn't necessarily that all actually aligns, because if you take my background and I try to actually make it align, then I'd be lying. But what I can do is I can make it so that when you look at my background and we're having a conversation, let me go back to the story. I often have candidates whose background makes no sense. I talk to them anyway because I'm a believer in people, not a believer in what they did in the past, right? So I'll err on the side of talking to people and I go, wow, this person is energetic, they're a go-getter. Kate, who got hired today, she makes no sense in this job, quite frankly. But what I do is I know that she will. I've done this a lot. And I probably know more about hiring than most hiring managers ever would. I know that she would make sense. And so it was my job to make it so that the hiring manager can go, oh, that makes sense. I'm not telling you it's easy. I'm just saying that if you can't cast your background in a way that the person you're going to talk to goes, oh, that makes sense to me, then as soon as something doesn't make sense, we as human beings are uncomfortable with the unknown. We're uncomfortable with things that don't make sense to us when we're going, it just means it doesn't make sense. And with respect to hiring someone like you, that's a big risky proposition, because if I'm looking to turn around stuff and you make me go, I can't hire you because you freak me out, right? You scare me, right? Yeah.
It sounds like you're just saying to present the things that you would say to a person if you were standing in the room with them and they said, hey, why do you think you could do this job?
Yeah.
And answering that, I think a lot of times people get hung up on putting every single thing they ever did to show that they could do lots of things, as opposed to just saying, if I was standing in front of the hiring manager and they said, why should I hire you? And just answering that question to a human being, you naturally take out all of those things when you know you have a couple of minutes to answer that question. So I'm hearing you say, just answer that question only
Right.
on whatever your application, your resume, your cover letter.
Who are you? What do you do? How can you help my business? What proof do you have? And why should I consider you further? And anything that isn't relevant to the direction you're going in does not help your case. So in your resume, in your LinkedIn profile, in that short conversation, and the other thing that the story that I told you about the gentleman who lost the job at the last second, I lost a big commission, because he didn't follow my advice and talking to the CEO of a 3,000 person global company about a $225,000 base position. Yeah, he said, no, I'd be open to operations positions as well. So my point on that is it never ends. There's never a moment in the short conversation you're talking about, in the long conversation you're talking about, all that other stuff. Really don't bring it up. Let me tell you one more story along that line, and I'll get your question. So another one, and the reason why I bring up these big positions, right, is because they're painful to me, and I remember in the past because it cost me a lot of money. It happens on not as painful positions too, but a lot of these people I would have expected them to know better. It was about 5 years ago, maybe a little longer ago. A gentleman he was meeting with a company on the West Coast, somewhere in LA or Silicon Valley, I forget. He had a significant amount of experience over in the Far East in terms of sales roles. This is a $320,000 a year base type position, $500,000 a year sales like leader. It was supposed to be a rubber stamp meeting with the chairman of the board of this company. They went out to dinner, and toward the end of the dinner, well, here's what happened. I got a call. They went out to dinner, so they were finished with their dinner about 8 o'clock, West Coast time. I got a call about 10 o'clock at night from the chairman of the board, and what he told me was, everything went great. Loved this guy. I think he could do a great job. But at the end of the conversation, he started talking about business over in the Far East. We're never going to do business over in the Far East. I'm afraid that I'd be doing this guy a disservice because he seems to be really interested in that. We won't be hiring him. So even at the last minute, that stuff that's irrelevant, he brought up the stuff that was irrelevant. You talked to him. He just thought that they were having casual conversation. It was over. It was over, right? Wow. You know what recruiting fees are? It's about 20% of people's base salary. So do the math on how much that cost me. Okay? Do the math. All right. Are we all good? I know I'm moving through stuff kind of a little crazy. Yes, sir. Oh, yeah. Thank you.
It's fine. So I might be a little rigid, but this has been one of my fears. So whenever you said, you were a software developer or whatever, you had a team of 3 or 5 or whatever.
Sure. And
you, in your conversations, on your LinkedIn, everywhere you're putting, I was a team manager, team leader,
Team
whatever.
lead, right?
Marketing is hard for me, but I'm learning it, right? I understand why you would say that, 100%.
Yep.
My fear is, I'd say position, all right, it's time to check your background.
Mm-hmm.
Gonna call NASA or whatever. Say, all right, and we have a guy here that was a manager for you guys, and they say, what are you talking about? This guy was a programmer. Because they don't know you or anything like that. All they know is programmer, job title, dates, whatever, right?
Sure.
Whatever.
Yep.
Does that not look bad?
In fact, so I get it. So that's never going to happen. And the reason why it's never going to happen is I'm talking about my early stage conversations. I'm talking about my LinkedIn profile. I'm talking about my resume even perhaps. So what's going to happen is before that ever happens, there's a lot of conversations that happen, right? I'm interviewing, I'm talking with people. By the time we get to the point where anybody's doing those kinds of background checks, you really already want me on my team. And at that point in time, as I'm moving forward, you're the hiring manager, right? And we're getting serious about this kind of stuff. What's your name? Roger. I'd say, hey, Roger, when you guys start doing background checks and stuff, my official title was software engineer. Really, I just put team lead because that gives you a better description of what I'm going to do, right? So I'll clear it up way before they're ever going to do any of those background checks. Once they're already in love with me, it really won't matter, right? It really won't matter. By the way, your resume is not a legal document. Have you ever had the experience where somebody wants to have you fill out an application, a job application, and you want to go, what, all that information is on my resume, do I really have to copy it all over? Have you ever had that feeling? Do you know why? An application is a legal document. So as a matter of fact, if it turns out that for whatever reason you're insane and I want to fire you, then one of the grounds I can fire you on is that you've misrepresented yourself on your application. So by having you fill out your own application, if later on I need some reason to get rid of you, that's a really clear way to do it with zero liability on my part. So a job application is a legal document. And if I'm having me fill one out, that's the point where I fixed that. So never confuse advertising with the car.
Right. So are you saying in that situation, I'm sorry, are
That's
you
okay.
saying in that situation that on your application, you put software developer?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And I would have open conversations with people, say, hey, and my official title is that, but you know what? And you could take it so far as to say, but you probably wouldn't have had a conversation with me about that. So I changed it. And here we are at this point. You want to imagine that. You want to hire a software engineer onto your team. Can you imagine the world in which that's going to happen? My point is that the early stage conversation, it's a step-by-step process. And I think a mistake that people, I'm sorry, I keep forgetting this is about my job search. I'm never going to forget that it's a step-by-step approach. And at the very beginning, I'm not thinking about the job. I'm thinking about getting somebody to even have a conversation with me, right? What do I need to do to get you to have a conversation with me? And that's what I'm going to do, right? Yes.
Here's something, my profile aligns, everything, the stars are all aligned.
Yep.
Apple Computer Company,
Right.
a couple months ago, recruiter, Apple employee, conversation, engineering, background, I've done exactly what they asked for. He's like, oh, this is fantastic. You're doing what we know. 2 weeks come by, get an email. I circulated your resume to the team. We need a bachelor's science mechanical engineer. Sorry. I have a business degree. I went into an engineering company, got promoted 3 times in 10 years. So there's the trajectory going up. Proof that I can do it at a company of some sort.
Yep.
Yet with them, none of that mattered for some reason unknown to me.
Right. So you've hit on one of the major reasons why I would never work for a big company, ever, because of the silly foolishness that they do around things like that. So that's just a quick sidebar, right? So the truth of the matter is that there are times when people have, so here's what I can tell you. I have a candidate that I know would be stellar in this particular position, has a 25-year history of all things that are relevant to it, to this particular role, would be a go-getter, but their corporation has a rule that for those kinds of roles at that kind of a level, because they have these job grade things, right, at a D3 or whatever it is, you have to have at least a bachelor's degree, and this person doesn't. And I can have the conversation till I'm blue in the face that says, what is it about this person having a bachelor's degree? Would you even care what it was? No, it wouldn't even matter what it was. It was history. So that's the ridiculousness of large corporations. So, you know, hard. If it were me in my job search and that happened to me, the only thing that I would do is I would go direct to some of those hiring managers and just say, hey, I'm just double checking, right? You know, this is what I could do. These are the problems I can solve. I understand your hands might be tied with respect to these kinds of bachelor's degree. I'm just wondering whether or not there might be anything you could do to help me out. So I'm going direct, right? The foolishness that happens in the HR departments and people like me and recruiters and stuff like that, it's just foolishness. So I'll take it direct to the hiring manager. All right, we're going to run out
You
of
see the
time.
same thing with certifications?
In terms of people requiring
The
them?
degree requirements, the certifications are micro degrees effectively. Are you seeing the same syndrome, perfectly qualified candidates being rejected because they don't have the 3 letters at the end of their email?
A lot more by large corporations than smaller. So the smaller the corporation, the less they care, right? Sometimes big companies do. And I think the reason why so let me defend the big companies for just a second. In their defense, sometimes they have this onslaught of so many people applying for jobs and the rest that they do out of desperation to try to do something to try to figure out how to handle the onslaught. And sometimes out of that desperation, what they do is not only have weird rules around degrees and things of that kind of stuff, but they use applicant tracking systems that try to do word matching across resume. They do all kinds of ridiculous things to narrow the field down to something that's actually
They're trying to
manageable.
reduce their risks on a statistical basis.
Yeah. And the problem I have with statistics with respect to people, we can take this offline. One of my favorite books last year is a book called The End of Average, by the way. And the idea that you can take averages of people and apply them to you as an individual is a ridiculous and foolish idea. It flat out doesn't work. And if you understand statistics and mathematics, you'll know that you can't ever take the statistics related to a set and apply it to any single member in the set. Quantum theory tells us that, right? But yeah, HR departments do it all the time because they don't know quantum theory. I do. Yeah.
The job description and the hiring manager. Many times I find out that I have to play question you gave, like, what is the real job about?
Oh.
As opposed to the job description. The job description tells me nothing.
It tells you nothing. In fact, that goes back to the guiding principle, which is, I have no idea.
And how do you get that to the hiring manager, find out what he's really looking for? But this thing here is a bad sign on interstate.
Oh yeah, it's a really bad sign. I'll tell you what, I think I'm going to get there. So hang that, I think I'm going to get there. All right. Yeah, we're going to go. So here's what I'm going to do. I got my profile, I got my compelling future story, I lined my background, I got an easy to tailor resume, which by the way, I'll show you in a second why, in fact, I think right now, why I want an easy to tailor resume is this. Oh, come on, there it is. All right. This is just a part of our applicant tracking system, right? You guys have probably heard that your resume gets sliced and diced by keywords and all that kind of stuff in these applicant tracking systems. Most companies of 50 people or more have one that's currently in place. These systems are ridiculous, they're stupid, and they don't work well. So let me just go there, right? I mean, there's nothing about these systems that are a good idea. A real life story. I have a person who's in play for a vice president against HR role. Vice President of HR for a significant global company who's here in town, a different one that rejected the guy who's the operations guy. But the reason why we're going to get paid a fee when she gets hired is that in her resume, she said HR in her resume, and the job description said human resources. And in her resume, she said global, and they say international, right? You do those kinds of things. And lo and behold, once I present her over, she's in their system from having applied for the job 3 months ago, but because I know the recruiter over there really well, she got a 1-star ranking because the words didn't match up, right? And so the reason why they're going to pay us a big fee, I'm super happy about that. This will make up for the other guy who was the operations guy and the other guy who talked about the East Coast, or the Far East, is that, yeah, they're really busy in their star ranking system, right? There's like a 1-star, so they paid no attention to her because there's 275 people apply for the job, most of whom are waiters. Right? So here's what I'm going to tell you. When you apply for a job online, a couple of things to know about applying for a job online. One is that I'd probably never apply for a job online, but if you do, please go directly to the company's website and do that. Here's what happens. When somebody applies through, thank you Indeed for being here, but when somebody applies through Indeed, it sends me an email message with an attachment on it. If I'm really busy and there's a lot of stuff going on, I've already got a lot of people in flow, those are my extras, they never even get into my applicant tracking system. The people apply directly do go straight into my applicant tracking system, so it's easier for me. So in Indeed and LinkedIn and all that stuff, when you hit quick apply, that's because it's easy for you. You just made it harder for me. So, you know, all I can tell you is the people who come in through those channels get less attention than the ones who come direct. When we do actually pick those up and actually put them into our applicant tracking system, they still get star ranked like this. We don't use it. But the reason why I have the easy to tailor resume is for the jobs that you really care about. It's a simple game. How many words in the job description can you make match to your resume? If you take the job description and submit it as your resume, you will be 5-star ranked. So literally what I would do if it were me is I would take the job description, I would paste it at the very bottom of my resume, I would probably drop it into bullet points, I'd probably end up with a block about that big. That's really most of the major words that happen to be in that job description. I put it at the very bottom of my profile. It's going to get me 5-star rank. And by the time anybody gets to the bottom of the resume and notices that there's a block of words down at the bottom, they've already decided they want to talk to me. In fact, they're never going to get to the bottom of my resume anyway. They're going to decide well before they get to the bottom and see the stat. And since I know that, I might actually put it parenthetically, hey, I put these words down here to make sure I get ranked high in your system. Right? Put it out there. Right? Well, why not? The other thing that I would do is up at the top of the summary of my resume, you know, where you see these columns where people put in whatever words. And by the way, you know what I'm talking about, the columns where people put in their skills or whatever it is? I'm not a big fan of those, except for getting through this, which is take some of those key words and things. If you got 3 columns of 4 words or whatever, make sure that those 12 words are the ones that appear in that profile the most. And the way you do it is take that profile, get rid of all the ands and whatever it is, and whatever words appear the most times in that profile, right? Put those in that list. Even if the word is something ridiculous, all you're trying to do is jump through the soup.
So I think your idea of cutting and pasting the job description is genius. I think it's fantastic.
I'm a hacker is what I am.
Love that. Love that. So can you just put tags? I mean, everybody kind of knows what a tag is.
Yeah. I would literally down at the bottom, I'd say keywords, colon, and there they would be. I'd have 4 or 5 rows of them, quite frankly, down at the bottom. All right, so that's the reason why it's important to have an easy to tailor resume. By the way, the other thing that happens in these applicant tracking systems is when I open yours up, and ours is, I mean, there are hundreds of them, but they all operate the same way. We do not look at the pretty Word version of your resume. We do not look at the pretty PDF version of your resume because it takes too long. And so what we do is, back on this slide, see that button right there that says resume? When I click on that, here's what it brings up. I have no idea why they take up this much screen space with this kind of BS up here at the top, but what I get to see is about that much of the top of your resume in text, right, is really what I see. After I only look at the 5 and the 4 stars, we don't do that, but most companies do. 5 and the 4 stars, because I figure even if I don't have time to look at all 225 of them, I'm going to pick at least at random, right, at least at random. But, you know, I see this very top, and then what happens is somebody who's a junior assistant coordinator who wouldn't understand a product manager from a project manager if their life depended upon it, and that's no fault of their own. I mean, they just don't necessarily know any better. Sees this, they doesn't see what they're looking. Their choices are they click nominate to move you forward, they click decline. It's the end of the day on Friday. Their eyes are bleeding from looking at all these kinds of things. Success for them looks like a more senior recruiter going, hey, thanks, Sully, that's a good set of resumes, right? And they have no idea, because when Sally's going through 225 of them and picking 20, no one's ever going to go back and look at the other 205 and see whether or not she did a good job. The only thing they're going to really do is to say, hey, Sally, thanks so much for narrowing that set down for me. Sally looks at this, her eyes are bleeding at the end of the day and says, meh, beep. It's that fast. Now, I could scroll down, but see the scroll bar is smaller, and I actually have to grab it, and I have to actually move it, right? And it's easier to do that. You think that I'm kidding, right? Not kidding, unfortunately. All right, there it is. Now I'm So here's what I know, and this is about my job search. I got this compelling feature story. I align my background the best that I can. I have an easy to tailor resume. I copy and paste the job description for those ones. I use as many words as I can, and you know, if I don't care about the job a whole lot, I'm not going to tailor it that much, whatever. And honestly, in my job search, I'm probably not applying for jobs online. So let me show you whatever. Search optimize LinkedIn, right? If you come to my LinkedIn stuff, I'll tell you all about this. Here's the simple version on your LinkedIn profile, which is I don't care what your LinkedIn profile looks like in the end. If it doesn't come up in the first or second page of my search results, it doesn't matter because I'm not looking at it anyway. So you have to build your LinkedIn profile. So in case I'm looking for someone who is a person like you, you'll come up in the first couple of pages of my search results. The easiest way to do that, by the way, you do know that when a recruiter or somebody searches for you, our searches, the people who come up at the top are the people who are first person connected to us, right? And then second person and then third person. So if, as an example, a technical recruiter is going and searching for people, and lots of corporate recruiters, I'm not a corporate recruiter, I'm a third party recruiter. So lots of corporate recruiters recruit the same types of people all the time, so their networks of those kinds of people become pretty large. So let's say that you're a Linux administrator. If you're not connected to the recruiters who are searching for Linux administrators on LinkedIn, you will not be on their first few pages because they've got connections to 150 of them, 250 or 300 of them. And if you're second person connected to them, you're on page 10 by definition. So no one's going to reach out to you. Also, just keep in mind that whatever titles you have on your jobs, if you have a title like technical analyst, I'll never search a technical analyst ever. And there's a reason to put multiple titles on your jobs, which are all the titles that somebody might search for. The most commonly used search by both hiring managers and recruiters is I do a title search, and I look for people with that title is what I look for. So yeah, I've got all kinds of stuff out there about how to do this, but it's kind of important. So here's where we're at. I know what I'm going to do. I'm really clear on it. And if somebody said, hey, what kind of, you're searching for a job, what are you going to do? I'm going to tell you, I'm a product manager. That's what it is. Oh, I thought you did recruiting stuff. Yeah, I used to. Yeah, whatever. That doesn't even matter anymore. Crystal clear. I'm a product manager. I got that. And I built my entire profile so that the headline on all of it says that, my story, my compelling story, everything about it. I align my background so it makes sense as to why I might be a product manager. It might not be the best move for me, by the way, if you look at my background. But I could try it. And yeah, I've done all these things. So that's where I'm at. Here's the key, by the way. Everything I told you matters, but this is what matters more. So it's all about the next phase is communicating. Right? So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to loosely target companies. And what I mean by loosely target companies is, let me go back to the top. I want you to, There it is. My guiding principle, I have no idea. All right, I have no idea. I was talking to somebody the other day, really interesting gentleman. I think he has a ton of value. He's been all over the place in his career. He's one of the most interesting people I've met in the last couple of weeks. I want to talk to him again because he's fascinating to me. He's brilliant. He's really smart. But almost anybody who looks at his resume is not going to talk to and hire this guy. Right? Just tell them they're not going to hire him. And part of what I was talking to him about is his approach. And he has this really methodical approach for, you know, he's looking at companies and he looks at their Glassdoor and he counts these things and he crunches these numbers and he puts together these statistics and he does it. I'm like, dude, really? And so he's spending about 30 minutes, right, 20 or 30 minutes trying to figure out whether or not this is a company where he really wants to work for. I'm like, just like, wow, what a total waste of time. And the reason why it's a total waste of time is that two reasons. One is it's never the company. It's always the people who you work with. And there is zero that you can tell off of Glassdoor. There's zero that you can tell off their LinkedIn profile. There's zero that you can tell off their website. There's zero that you can tell almost anything you could find online about the true quality and interest and motivation and drive and thrivingness and happiness and everything else of the human beings who happen to be inside of that company. And that's the number one most important thing. You can't see it, right? By the way, what makes you great as an individual? What makes you great as an employee? How hard is it to see what makes you great on your resume? It's pretty impossible, right? Same thing. Job descriptions are crap, quite frankly. So all I'm telling you is that I'm going to very loosely target companies. And the way that I'm going to target companies is I'm going to identify the companies that have the kinds of problems that I solve. That's all. What companies have the kinds of problems that I solve? How might you identify companies that have the kinds of problems that you solve? And what I mean by problems that I solve is, since I'm going to be a product manager, what problems do a product manager solve? Well, you know, they look at the analysis to do return on investment on potential products, right? They look at the total product life cycle. They can look sometimes at the later end at the cost of manufacturing, if that's such a thing. You look at who the consumer base is, what their buying behaviors are, right? I mean, those are the kinds of problems you solve. But ultimately, it's about defining and managing the entire life cycle of a product until it comes out in the market, sells the way it's supposed to, and gets retired. I mean, that's the problem that a product manager solves. It would probably be, for me, in some software as a service space, and the closer related you could get to communications and recruiting, the better off I would be. And so how do you identify companies that have the kind of problems that you solve?
Talk to people who work in the company.
Yeah, you can. That's one of the ways. What else? So my short circuit goes all the way back to my market research, which I'll go straight to LinkedIn. I'll find people who held the title of the jobs that I'm likely to have, and I'll find 5 different titles. And here's what I can do. I can run a search for product manager, and I can say in Austin, Texas, if that's where I want to be, and I can page through, and what I do is every page has 20 people in it. All those 20 people probably work somewhere, and I can write down a list of every single company where those product managers work, because I know those companies have the kinds of problems that I solve. They already have product managers. They hire product managers. Now, if I read a search for product managers and there's 2,500 of them, all right, I can probably narrow that down a little bit because I haven't got time to go through 2,500. So I can start narrowing it down by industry and stuff like that. But here's what I want to do, and we're talking about my job search, right? In my job search, I'm targeting 200 companies. 200. And how much research are going to do on those 200 companies? None, right? None. And the reason I'm going to do none is in the recruiting world, maybe not all recruiting world, in my team we use this notion of QIA, qualified, interested, and available, right? Qualified, interested, and available. The most difficult, the most expensive part of that is identifying qualified, right? That's the most expensive part. Available is as easy as, hey, pick me, you know, anybody who'd respond, right? There at least some level of interest and some level of availability. So as a recruiter, I can go do a search on LinkedIn, and I can look at people's profile, and kind of go, oh, maybe they're qualified, maybe they're not. Here's what I have. No, I have no idea. I have no idea, because what's going to make them great is your interview, right? See, I mean, that's what makes you great, not just the tasks you perform. And I can't tell that from your resume. So I've figured out over the years that I have no idea about looking at people online. So if I try to qualify them, I could spend hours going through lists of resumes and people, and I have no idea who's really good or who isn't. But what I can do is I can send an email message to 200 of them, and when 15 reply to me, those are the ones who are interested and available. Now I've got to go see whether or not they're qualified. I can do that in 15 minutes. So what I can do is I'm going to loosely target 200 companies, And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to identify my champions. I'm going to find recruiters. I'm going to find potential hiring managers. I'm going to find peers inside of that company. I'm going to get their email addresses. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to execute an email campaign, a phone campaign for some of them. But I'm going to execute a marketing campaign. And all I'm looking for is for response. I want response because all I want is to talk to some people. Because here's what I know. The only thing that every person who gets hired has in common is that they get in front of the hiring manager. So my whole objective is to get in the hiring manager as fast as they can. So realize that your resume is in your way, your LinkedIn profile is in your way, me as a recruiter, I am in your way. Everybody in HR is in your way. Interviewers, none of those people, I mean, some of them may say yes, but they have the chance to say no before you ever even get to the hiring manager. Why in the world would I give them a chance to tell me no? You know, are you kidding me? You know, I'm not going to play that game. So the game that I'm going to play is I'm going to loosely target 200 companies. Inside of each one of those companies, I'm going to identify at least 3 or 4 people. So now do the math. How many people do I have identified if it was 3 people at 200 companies? 600 people, right? So now I'm going to use a system like Yesware or what have you, where I can mass email people. I can see who opens my messages. I'm probably going to have a link in there where they can learn more about my LinkedIn profile. It's going to be a trackable link. I can tell you exactly who's opening, who's responding, who's clicking on those kinds of things, and I'm going to have a 3 or 4 step campaign. For some of the hiring managers, my campaign is going to include a phone call, and I'm going to launch, right? That's how I recruit, so why wouldn't I find a job that way? And I know what I'm telling you to do might be a little bit daunting for you, but on our average job search, we reach out to 175 people. It's actually 173. We reach out to 173 people on average for every single job that we fill. So why wouldn't I expect to do the same thing with something even more important called get a job for me? So what I'm going to do is I'm loosely targeting these companies because I have no idea, because the thing that really matters is who the human beings are, and I launch this campaign out. And what happens is a lot of them are people like, hey, no, we don't do anything, but you know, good luck to you. There's all kinds of stuff that I get back. And then somebody, and a bunch of those, if I have 600 people, I'm going to launch a campaign of 3 different messages, I promise you, somebody's going to talk to me. Somebody's engaging with me. Somebody needs my help, right? They need my help. So they're going to talk to me. And now what happens is when that person responds to me, now I'm going to go bother to look at who they are, start investigating that company and the rest. And I don't care who they are. If they're willing to have a conversation with me, I'm going to go have a conversation with that person, right? I'm going to. My whole objective here is I'm going to go find human beings to talk to. Period. Stop. And I'm going to talk to them in person, not just over the phone, right? I'll try to drive that. And with respect to job postings, right? So what we all know, I think you probably all know, that it's estimated that less than 20% of all hires had anything to do with anybody applying for a job online, right? You know that, right? So, you know, it's my least target-rich way to go. So I'm not spending much time on it. All I'm going to do is I'm going to set up an automated job post search so that things that are new come out to me. I may or may not apply for it online. If I go to their website and it's direct, it's fast, and it's easy, I may go ahead and apply online. But if it's one of these things where it's 9 pages of BS that you kind of got to go through, just no. Just no. Me personally, I would never do that because I know what's on the other end. And the other end is a system that's going to slice and dice me, and I'd have to tailor my resume and all that kind of stuff for a junior assistant coordinator to try to evaluate whether or not I'm somebody they ought to talk to as a product manager. And because my background doesn't fit or whatever it is, they're naturally going to screen me out. So that path is going to be non-effective for me, so I'm not going to bother, right? So that's what I'm going to do. And does this make sense?
Yeah.
All right. Other thing I want to tell you about this, though, that I think is really critical is, so I talk to a lot of hiring managers, and I'm a curious guy, and so for years I've been talking to hiring managers about how long did you know that you were probably going to need to hire someone? Right? How long ago did you know? What do you think the answer typically is? Yeah, at least months. They knew months in advance that they were going to need to hire somebody, right? How long, when by the time a job is posted, when does the hiring manager want somebody to start? Yesterday. So here's the deal. Once the job is posted, their hair is on fire, they need somebody who fits all the criteria because they've already run out of time for any learning curve, they're already totally frustrated, they're buried in work, their recruiting team and their HR team is doing a horrible job for them. Right? You guys ever been a hiring manager? You ever been in this situation? Right? Have you? Yeah. It happens a lot, right? And here's what I know, is that this campaign right here goes back to, well, people say, well, how do you know that they're hiring? I don't know. What I don't know is I don't know that they're not about to fire somebody today because they're doing a bad job. What I don't know is they're not about to have a huge layoff, and not only are they not hiring me, but they're letting a bunch of people go. What I don't know is that they just closed a big project today, and they're going to hire 15 people, and despite the fact that they've been working on that deal for over a year, they've spent 0 time trying to hire anybody, and now they're freaking out because they have to start next week, and they have no people to do the work. I have no idea what's going on. But what I do know is if I reach out to 600 people that are somehow in the zone of companies that have my problem, 1 or 2 or 3 or a dozen or 2 of them are sweating bullets right now because they have no idea what they're going to do. And how dare me not reach out to them because I owe my fellow human beings, you know, my dedication and my motivation to get some stuff done. So dang, I better get after it. I got to reach out to these people because they're drowning, right? And they need my help. So the idea is that since you never know, if you can communicate with these people early on, your best case situation is that they just got approval to hire somebody a couple of weeks ago. Nobody's working on it, and has anybody ever worked in a company where you have no support in hiring? You got approval to hire, but you got to do all the work yourself, and you're already so busy you don't have time to do it. Does anybody have to do that? Cool, right? So tell you what, you just got approval on Monday to hire a job, and I show up in your email today serendipitously as a person who solves the kind of problems that you need. Are you going to talk to me? Yes. Of course you are, right? Of course you are. So I'm launching messages to 600 people because out of 600 of them, I'm going to find 30 or 40 who are in that exact position because the job's not posted because you have no support for it and your company won't do it for you and you don't have any money. What are you going to do? Take money out of your pocket and put it on Indeed? Right now you're just praying that I show up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to answer your prayers. Okay? I'm just answering prayers. That's all I'm doing. All right. Closing the deal. Yes, please. Yep.
So when you are sending out the 600 emails, are you just saying, hey, this is who I am, I'm looking for work to do this, or here's how I can help you, what do you?
So the first thing I'm going to say is short and sweet, right? Short and sweet. And the second thing I'm going to tell you is what you say matters a whole lot less than you actually just say something, right? So part of me wants to take away the concern of what does the body of it say like and say, you know what, I started a company back in 2000. And the name of our company was Cool Hires, but it was structured so that we had to have a company up there. And at the time, we named the company that was the holding company Stain Incorporated. And the reason why we named it Stain Incorporated because we found out at the last minute from our attorney we wanted to do it. And we had just been laughing at lunch over the fact that at the time, it was in the late 90s, right? Late 90s, early 2000s, where if we ran an ad that said, you know, something about Java on it, whatever, and people would respond, and we were laughing, saying, shit, we could run a stain out there in the newspaper, whatever it was. My point is, the content doesn't matter as much as the fact that you do it, right? With that said, I've got lots of resources to tell you, but my message would be, what's your name? Hi Nancy, my name is Gary O'Neill. I'm a product manager here in Austin, Texas with significant experience in those kinds of things. You know, my network tells me, you know, that you are a good person for me to reach out to. Perhaps you or someone you know might be interested in talking to me about how I solve product management problems for companies like yours. Thanks, Gary. All right, that's it. That's all. By the way, if you want people to connect to you on LinkedIn, right, you're sending connection requests. I've experimented with this a lot. Either no personalized message has pretty decent response, but the best response has to do with like if Stephen, what do you do professionally? Sales, great. So if I was connecting with you on LinkedIn, I see you do sales, my message would simply say, hey Stephen, it's always good to be connected with sales professionals in Austin, Texas. So whatever you are and whatever you do, I just say, hey, it's always good to be connected with whatever it is in Austin, Texas. And my accept rate on that is really high, right? About 40% accept rate. Yeah, so that works great. All right, so the last part is let's close this deal. So here's the deal. Here's what I know about closing the deal. And by the way, it's my job to close the deal, not to hire. You know, my perspective, and I guess I'm a different guy, right? I know that, but hopefully you can get some takeaway from this is the idea that I'm going to wait for the hiring manager to choose me? Are you kidding me? You know, no way. I'm going to close the deal. So from the very first conversation that we have, Walter's your name, right? So the very first conversation you and I have on the phone, Walter, whenever that happens or whatever it is, I'm closing the deal right now, right? I'm beginning to close the deal with you. I'm the candidate, you're the hiring manager, but I'm going to close you, right? And so here's the deal. To close you, that means it can't be about me. My whole focus is on you. What's your problem? What keeps you up at night? What are you sweating about? What will make you more successful? What are the challenges that your team have? How can I help? And I'm, from moment one, I'm aligning myself with making you successful, right? That's what I'm doing.
I'm asking, what really makes you howl at midnight on top of the roof?
Mm-hmm. No question. Yeah. Yeah.
Be human. You know,
Yeah.
sit there in the corner of the bed with them and say, I know why you get up in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
You can ask them.
There you go. Yeah. And so in an interview situation, right, let me share this with you. An interview situation often feels like you're on one side of the table and I'm on the other side of the table, right? And so what I know is that if our interview starts this way, and we're having this conversation, this is the way they go, and it feels like you're evaluating me as the candidate, right? And I'm here just to answer questions, right? If the interview goes great, then what happens is, let's assume for a second that this is the problem. Let's just say it's the metaphor for the problem. We start out talking like this, and it's my job as the candidate, if you're not great as an interviewer, which statistically you're not, right? It's my job that by the end of the interview, right, we're both looking at this, right? And we're both talking about that. And what we're talking about is how I can help you be more successful because I can help you get that done, right? I can help you get that done, right? And I'll work like a dog to help you get that done, right? Dude, there's nobody who's going to pull it out better than that. What can I do to help you make this happen? You feel that? That kind of even feels good now. That feels good to me. I've got chill bumps. I got goosebumps. Yeah, let's do it, right? So my point is, I'm going to close the deal. I'm not going to leave it up to them. It starts from the very first moment. And the way that I do it is I focus on what's in it for them. It has nothing to do with me. What my interests are don't matter. What my needs are don't matter. It's amazing to me. People try to negotiate comp with me sometimes when they say is, well, I've got these bills, and I'm kind of going, what? You think we're going to pay you more money because you've got a lifestyle or you need more money? Are you kidding me? Why in the world would I do that? All I know is I'm less interested in you now because you make really bad decisions about how to negotiate. I try not to hold people accountable for that because I know that they're naive and they just don't know any better. But people who do what I do for a living, you kind of get worn out with it. Right? You're kind of going, really? Please have a little game. Please have a little game. What's in it for them? If you don't remember anything else other than having to close the deal, it's all about what's in it for them and nothing about what's in it for you. All right? Eliminate doubt. And what I mean by doubt is that doubt is insidious, right? It grows and it festers. Does anybody here, how many of you watched the latest version of Stranger Things? You guys seen Stranger Things, the last version? Some of you might watch it, I can't tell you what I'm going to tell you. So that stuff that was going on that I can't tell everybody about, that you all know what I'm talking about, that was insidious doubt, right? And insidious doubt happening, spreading, right, and all that kind of stuff. That's what happens with doubt. And what I mean by doubt is that, following an interview, and I always reach out to the hiring manager. Sometimes the hiring manager's, well, I'm not, You hear that sound? Right? Well, what happens over the next couple of days and over the weekend? Does that doubt grow, or do they kind of go, you know what, after second thought, what happens? That never happens. Doubt grows, always. And so my point is that in those conversations, right, please don't create the doubt. Don't plant the seed. Because, Walter, I'm going to keep using you as the person I'm talking to, if that's all right, right?
That's fine.
I did a bunch of research on your company and those kinds of things. I mean, I'm not really sure about such and such. What are you guys going to do about this problem that seems apparent to everybody, right?
Well,
I
if you have
doubt.
a problem, then you should give me a solution.
Maybe. But I just introduced doubt into the equation, quite frankly, right? I introduced it. And if I'm kind of going, you know what, I better be the best thing since sliced bread if I'm going to question you yet, especially early stage in this conversation. All I know is when you make somebody uncomfortable by introducing doubt, well, I'm not sure about your organization. I'm not sure about this stuff. Sometimes people, I think that they think they're doing themselves a favor or cocky. The idea that you have doubt going into it, the best way to eliminate doubt is get all the way through the process. My goal when I started this whole thing is I want 4 offers at least so that I get to choose, right? That's my goal. I want at least 4 offers so that I get to choose. And as we move along the process, I'm going to give you 0 reason to, if a particular deal doesn't happen and I don't get an offer, I want it to be because I chose to walk away, not because Mark chose to decline me. And so what I know is as soon as I start introducing doubt and telling you stuff I'm not sure about or whatever it is, I'm begging you to take me out of the running because I just made you uncomfortable, right? So just don't do that. Wait till the end. And if in the end, get it all the way through. I went on an interview, I actually took the job here, but I went on an interview because I thought I was helping a friend of mine. What I knew was, going into it, they are going to make me an offer and I am going to decline it, but I'm going to get the offer. So even in the middle of it, if I was doing this job search, even if it was a company I knew I didn't want to work for, I'd run the whole gauntlet and I'd do everything that I could to get to offer stage, and I'm going to decline the offer, right? I'm going to run the gauntlet. Of course, making them just read that. What else? Right. Politely aggressive follow-up.
There's a question back here.
What's that? Oh, I'm sorry.
So being a little upfront in the interview, like saying after, based off what you've seen, do you have any doubts? That's
Right.
not a good thing, because I've introduced doubt, or because I'm
No,
trying
I'm
to.
not. I'm talking about introducing doubt about you, right? If I'm coming into an interview kind of going, well, I'm not really sure about your company and all those kinds of things, and I'm kind of coming in with this little bit of attitude, I'm not sure that serves you well.
Yeah.
But I don't think that it's inappropriate. You know, there's a lot of the detail we could get into. If it feels right to you, then go ahead and do it. If it feels uncomfortable to you, I guarantee you it's going to feel uncomfortable to the other person, right? I think that it's also, if you keep the focus on, you know, the problem and all, then maybe it's about, you know, do you have any concerns about my ability to help you solve these problems? Do you have any, you know, is there anything else I could do to help you understand how hard I would work and what I would do and the things and the links that I would go to ensure success of your team? And along the way, I probably found out what success looks like, so I'm going to mirror those things back to you. As much as I can not shine the light on me and shine the light on the problem you have to solve, I'm going to keep it off of me. So the idea, is there anything about me that you have doubts about or whatever it is? Well, okay. Let's talk about the problem. You know, any doubts or any concerns about my ability to get this work done, right, is probably a better approach. Politely aggressive follow-up, and what I mean by that is that I don't know whoever wrote, other than just in polite, being polite, I don't know whoever, there's a lot of these hidden rules that people think that there are in the job search stuff, like there's this hidden rule that says that if you interviewed, they're supposed to get back to you. I probably should. I mean, that would be nice and polite. But if you take it upon yourself and you say, no, it's my job to follow up, not theirs, you're going to be doing yourself a huge favor, right? You do yourself a huge favor. Yes?
You talked about farming to a bunch of people and then only concentrating on the ones that you get a response from.
Yeah.
What if you farmed out to a bunch of people, got a response, hey, that's where I really want to be. You go talk to them. I'm going to give you some of my time just so I can get my foot into the door.
Yeah, yeah.
And they didn't know, they have a problem, but they're not advertising for a position, they don't have a position,
Of course not.
but they have a problem that you
Sure.
can help them with.
Absolutely.
And then all of a sudden they go, I just don't know what I just don't know. Well, why? Well, I don't know.
They don't know about what?
That's just it. Couldn't get to that.
Right.
Don't know about what? Is it time? Is it investment? Is it doubt in me?
Right.
And the answer came back, I just don't know.
Right. So, you know, since I don't know, probably my follow-up to that would be, you know, what is it that I could do to help you, you know, get a little bit more clear on
Try that
right?
too.
Right. So sometimes you reach a dead end, and part of the reason why you reach a dead end is because people are uncomfortable telling you no, and if they decided no, because they kind of go, you know, I don't like you, you smell funny. They don't want to tell you that. So I have hiring managers tell me stuff all the time that are ridiculous things about why they're not moving forward with somebody, things that don't make sense to me. And I'll push it until it makes sense to me. And so I've had people literally, I'll never forget. He said, all right, the guy looked like a walrus and he had food in his mustache and he slept in his jacket. I'm like, dude, why didn't you just tell me? I get it. I don't expect you to hire a walrus. So the truth is, you have no idea. And not anything about walruses. The dude actually reeked. Apparently he stunk, right? I mean, it's not what he looked like, but they're kind of going, really? And my point is, they tell me all kinds of stuff sometimes because they don't really want to tell me the truth because it's hard to tell somebody no. So what I would do in that case is, attention is an asset that you have, and you have a finite amount of attention. So if you imagine attention as like these darts that have strings attached to them, right? That my suggestion is, if it's a really meaningful opportunity for you, and you've gone through all that and you reach this point where there seems to be doubt, I'd give it 3 good tries, and after that I take my attention off of it and I'm done with that and I move on, right? Because those attention units are valuable, and it's your job to disconnect those attention units from whatever it is that you're worried about. You have to take them off.
Well, but it kind of seemed like a no to me, so I don't want to bother him.
Oh, well, if it sounds like a no, then move on. You got to decide when you're moving
Just want to
on.
let him know, hey, opportunity's still available if you see it.
Yeah, right? Sure, thanks so much for your time. You know, I understand that this is what some of your problems are, and here's what I'm motivated to do. You know, I welcome a future conversation with you, whatever makes sense. Done, and you just close the door, you remove the attention units, and now you put them on something else, right? I see people all the time in job search, they're all tied up in this thing. Well, they haven't got back to me, and they keep thinking about all this stuff that you're kind of going, you know what? You got to let it go. You got to let it go. Politely aggressive follow-up, right? So I'm going to be the one who's following up. And I'm going to follow up 3 times is what I'm going to do. My last follow-up is what's called the takeaway close. And the takeaway close is going to essentially say, Kathy, you know, thank you so much for your time and the rest. You know, it's been a few weeks when we talked. My assumption is that things aren't going to be moving forward, you know. If it turns out that you would like to have continued conversations with me, I'm open to it. I do appreciate your time and all those kinds of things. And I let it go. So I just closed the door partly so I don't even have to think about you anymore. And the other reason why is because people want what they can't have, and if Kathy's thinking about me and also thinking about Ed or what have you, I'm sorry, Ed, but Kathy's going to like me more now because I basically withdrew myself from consideration. Either that, or she's going to let me go and go with Ed, which means you didn't really like me anyway. So no matter what, I'm going to try 3 times. I'm going to take my attention off of it, and I'm moving on. And the reason why I'm moving on is I got 550 other people to talk to. Right? And if I'm going to negotiate a deal, I'm going to negotiate on value is what I'm going to do. This probably isn't the time to talk about negotiating deals, but negotiating deals is a whole other deal altogether. So that's how I land my next job.